From 2007 to 2009, middle-aged single men died strangely in Japan. At first, the police did not pay any attention to it, but just one case revealed the secret of the girl, who was dubbed the Black Widow by the press. Kanae Kijima was born on November 27, 1974 in Nakashibetsu, Japan. She was the eldest among 4 siblings. Although the names of her relatives have not been made public, it is known that her father was a notary public and her mother a piano teacher. Kanae's parents came from wealthy families and tried to raise their children in a favorable environment, providing them with everything they needed as they grew up. However, as the firstborn, Kanae received special attention. Inspired by her mother's musical passion, she began to develop her talent for playing the piano for endless hours. Kanae honed her technique, and in a very short time, her abilities became apparent. She even performed recitals on various stages and participated in prestigious competitions. But that wasn't Kanae's only interest. At the age of 9, she already knew how to cook, and this quality, according to her mother, boded well for her future as a wife. However, in order to raise a decent generation, her father imposed strict discipline at home, including limiting access to television. In addition, he gave them virtually no money for personal expenses. Kanae easily coped with the first harsh parental rules, was active and an excellent student. However, the problem of limited access to money was much harder for her to cope with. The girl was prone to luxury and wastefulness. Her father's strictness seemed unbearable to her, and soon she gave in to her instincts. In high school, she learned that her father kept $21,000 in cash at home and embezzled this money, which she then spent on clothes and handbags exclusive brands. As soon as her father found out, he punished Kanae by reducing her allowance. But contrary to her father's wishes, the girl did not regret it, but on the contrary, she craved even more money. This is how she got into the intriguing world of dating. Gaining courage, Kanae began to offer her company to older men in exchange for generous monetary rewards. In this context, she entered into a relationship with a man in his 40th, whose identity is unknown. Under his influence, Kanae stole the bank book of one of her classmates. The two of them then withdrew about $80,000 from it. When authorities discovered them, they were arrested and molested in court. But because Kanae was still a minor, she received probation. Despite this, she maintained an excellent academic record and graduated from high school. After that, she decided to move to Tokyo and enroll in the Faculty of Economics. However, Kanae's interest in studying disappeared almost immediately, and she dropped out of college. Nevertheless, the girl realized that the city fascinated her and did not want to leave. To make ends meet, she took several temporary and unstable jobs. One of them was working as a waitress at a fast food restaurant. The long hours, the harsh environment, and the low pay kept her busy. She constantly worried about how to pay the rent for the apartment, which she hated because it was very modest. It was only a matter of time before Kanae acquired a new nefarious habit. She would walk into a store and pretend to be a regular customer and steal cosmetics, books, and even money. Although she was caught several times, she managed to avoid arrest. These occasional thefts were not enough for the standard of living she aspired to. It was then that Kanae quit her job and decided to go to an escort club. These establishments offered services ranging from conversation and social gatherings to more intimate companionship. Clients were able to choose a woman based on the information provided. But with a height of 5 feet and a weight of 105 kilograms, Kanae did not fit into the accepted standards of beauty. She did not attract much attention at first. But that all changed when she met a pimp named Takao, who became her mentor. He taught her how to satisfy a man, inspired her to create an entire marketing strategy, and told her that she needed middle-aged or older men with low self-esteem and no inclination to desire the women they really wanted. After realizing the value of her own skills and virtues, Kanae learned how to make emotional connections with her partners. She discovered that kindness and consideration fostered not only attention but also appreciation. Kanae became an expert in the art of seduction, skilled at reading people and understanding what they want. She discovered a new unprecedented power within herself. At that time, Kanae took the pseudonym Sakura, and under it made up the story that her father was a professor at the prestigious Tokyo University, the most elite educational institution in the country. On other occasions, she posed as either a nurse, a therapist, or a famous chef. All of these fictionalized stories created a captivating image. In this new role, one of the clients was Sadao Fukuyama. They met in February 2001 in a bar, and their communication was so intense that within 2 weeks they became lovers. But not only that, the man, previously characterized by his frugality and careful spending, made the mistake of trusting her. Kanae shamelessly took advantage of this. To begin with, she made up a story about the death of her parents in an airplane crash and told him that she could not pay the tuition at the music school in Boston, where she supposedly studied. Sadao promised to take care of all the expenses, and she in turn traveled from the US once a month to meet with him. The man looked forward to these visits, elegantly dressed and in love with the woman he thought was his fiancée. Kanae took the opportunity to empty most of his savings. A few years later, realizing that she had already exhausted all of Sadao's financial resources, Kanae put an end to their relationship. Cunning and manipulative, she left no trace that would allow her to be discovered when the man suspected he was the victim of a hoax and tried to report her. The evidence was insufficient to prosecute the case. A few months afterward, in August 2007, Sadao was late for work. Concerned, one of his co-workers went to his home and, upon entering, found him dead in the shower. When the news became public, Kanae transferred $50,000 of her ex-fiancé's funds into her bank account. Since the police were never able to determine the cause of death, the case was filed as a domestic accident. In 2008, Kanae became interested in the development of the internet in Japan, and after analyzing the obvious advantages of the virtual world, she decided to change her strategy. She created a profile on the main local social networks dedicated to finding a partner under the pseudonym Sakura. In her description, she made it clear that she was looking for a serious relationship to start a family. Kanae was well aware of the characteristics and needs of her potential victims. She knew that they were mostly men with high work and social pressures, high incomes, and emptiness in their souls. Moreover, her strategy was to adapt to the situation and change arbitrarily depending on the preferences of her interlocutors. In this sense, Kanae sometimes presented herself as a young woman looking for true love, a talented pianist, or a pet store owner with a passion for cooking. It didn't take her long to become a real virtual celebrity. Especially her profile was liked by mature and elderly men who wanted to give a worthy meaning to their old age. One of those who fell in love with Kanae was Takao, a 53-year-old systems engineer who lived in a suburb of Tokyo. Since his daily life was limited to commuting home from work and the only people he socialized with were his mother and sister, in February 2008, Takao decided to try to meet someone online. 2 months later, Kanae sent him an invitation to chat and expressed hope for a future marriage, but first she asked for financial help to cover some expenses. At the same time, Kanae posed as a nurse and caregiver for the elderly, answering ads posted on the internet. Kenzo Ando, 80, lived in Noda City, Chiba Prefecture. Although his income was low, he came from a respected family, and his father was a famous artist from whom he inherited valuable works. In addition, Kenzo suffered from some health problems. On their first communication, Kanae sent him a carefully retouched photograph that barely showed a part of her body. Kenzo was impressed and hired her as his caregiver and cook. Kanae not only cooked a special meal for him, but was willing to do anything to please him. In this way, she won his loyalty and appreciation. After a month, Kanae approached Kenzo for a loan, saying that the money was needed to pay for her university fees. Without a moment's hesitation, he handed over all his savings to her. At the same time, she was defrauding other men. In all cases, their names have not been made public, but it is known that their ages range from 40 to 50 years old. At the time when Takao was dreaming of a life together, Kanae already had her own plan, and it was quite different. After buying electric stoves online, she arranged to meet him at his house and took sleeping pills with him before the date. After cooking dinner for both of them, she dissolved a few pills in the food. A few minutes later, Takao passed out. Kanae dragged him into his room, closed all the doors and windows, set up the stoves, put charcoal on them, and turned them on. Before leaving, she transferred $121,000 from Takao's account to her own bank account. She also took her house keys and computer. 5 days later, on February 4, 2009, Takao's supervisor came to his home to see if everything was okay. Receiving no response, he contacted the local authorities and Takao's lifeless body was found. After analyzing the call history, investigators discovered that Yoshiyuki only had his mother, sister, and Kanae under the alias Sakura on his contact list. When officers contacted Kanae, she reported that Yoshiyuki was emotionally unstable and had likely passed away after experiencing heartache over her rejection of his proposal. Since there were no signs of violence, this version seemed logical to the police, and as a result, the investigation was not continued. After coming out of the coma, Kenzo returned home. On the evening of May 15, 2009, Kanae visited him, sat with him as usual, and busied herself with cooking dinner. But this time she added a special ingredient to his meal: sedatives. Once Kenzo fell asleep, she locked him in his room and repeated the procedure with the electric stoves as she had done with her other victims. Before leaving, she accessed Kenzo's bank account and transferred $13,000 to her own. This time, one of the electric stoves caught fire, and the flames engulfed the entire house. Kenzo died instantly from the fatal burns. A subsequent autopsy revealed that the man had consumed an unusual amount of sleeping pills, although he had never used such drugs before. Despite this, authorities ruled his death an accident. In the meantime, Kanae continued to blog, seeking out new victims online. In July 2009, Yuki Uide stumbled upon her account and, unable to resist her charms, sent her a message. Yuki was a 41-year-old bachelor who earned income from renting out the family property and was very close to his mother, who lived in Kijima. Kanae introduced herself to him as a graduate student, and they started chatting. 2 days after meeting, they met and their relationship grew rapidly. They announced their engagement and began making plans for a wedding. As part of the prenuptial agreement, Kanae asked Yuki to wire $30,000 to pay for her graduate school tuition. On August 5, 2009, they took a trip to Kijima, where they planned to spend 3 days. It was a particularly important date for them, and Kanae was preparing a fancy dinner to celebrate. Unbeknownst to Yuki, she had added sleeping pills to his food. Upon arriving in Kijima, when they pulled into the parking lot, the sleeping pills began to take effect on Yuki, and he fell asleep. Kanae left him in the car, turned on the electric charcoal stove, and left. She forgot to leave her keys in the car, and a surveillance camera recorded her leaving. After that, Kanae stole $35,000 from Yuki's account. Police initially thought that Yuki left his life voluntarily, but when they discovered his car keys were missing and found no note explaining his actions, suspicions began to mount. Analysis of his blog also indicated that the cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning. When police gained access to the surveillance footage, they were able to expose Kanae's return. However, the lack of additional cameras prevented important evidence from being uncovered. A thorough investigation began, focusing on Kanae. Then, when Yuki's computer was analyzed, it was revealed how they met. When investigators approached Kanae, she stated that she had met Yuki the day before she left him alone. She also speculated that after she left, the man might have done something to get away with it. But despite Kanae's statement, the police decided to launch a thorough investigation, gathering information on all the deaths and fraud cases that linked her to those involved. On September 15, 2009, Kanae again made contact with another 43-year-old man on a virtual platform. However, his name remained unknown in this case. The girl posed as an American student studying cooking in Japan. She also led one to believe that she had family problems and financial difficulties in paying her tuition fees. Finally, Kanae informed him that she was willing to give up everything, including her studies, to be with him. Next day, her lover sent her $17,000. A few days later, Kanae moved into his house. In doing so, she purchased 2 electric stoves. She then cut all the fire alarm wires in the house. Kanae's plan was thwarted when on September 23, 2009, the fiancé's sister arrived at the residence with the idea of staying for a few days. The girl immediately became suspicious of her new sister-in-law and tried to convince her brother not to continue the relationship. The case worsened when he told her about the strange circumstances of acquaintance and the money he lent her. The sister then decided to follow her intuition and told the police everything she knew. On September 25th, police officers arrived at the residence and arrested Kanae on fraud charges. When they searched the room, they found that all of the alarm devices had been disabled, indicating that the girl was about to perform a characteristic procedure. The search also uncovered various medications, including several classes of drowsy and sedative medications. In addition, investigators found all online purchases of stoves on her computer. This evidence provided a direct link to previous cases, thus making her the prime suspect in Yuki's death. In January 2010, as the investigation into the unusual deaths continued, Kanae was charged with multiple counts of fraud. A month later, she was charged with murder, specifically in the death of Takao. Although an autopsy was never performed in that case, the charge was based on a lack of clear evidence of the cause of death, leading to an unusual situation. During the trial, she pleaded not guilty, claiming that their deaths were accidental or a personal decision by the men. This was consistent with the strategy of her defense, which sought an acquittal, citing a lack of hard evidence. In the absence of such direct evidence, as well as witnesses and confessions, the prosecution emphasized the importance of circumstantial evidence, such as her presence with the victims before their deaths and the similarity of the causes of death. All tests on the body showed that the men had consumed a drug that was also found in Kanae's possession. The prosecution also said that the girl received large loans from her 3 victims and killed them to avoid paying back the money. According to prosecutors, Kanae used charcoal from electric stoves to poison the 3 victims to confuse authorities, as death by poisoning is a common way of passing away in Japan. Finally, on April 13, 2012, a jury found Kanae guilty of murdering the 3 men and sentenced her to death. Doomed to the death penalty, Kanae continued to blog. In it, she continued to talk about her experiences and the fame she gained, even financial support from some fans willing to improve her living conditions. Incredibly, one of her fans who gave her financial support ended up marrying Kanae. This happened in 2015, and the man was reportedly around 60 years old. However, after an accident, he became disabled, making it impossible for him to continue supporting her financially. Kanae then divorced him. Kanae also used her time behind bars to write her memoirs, which were then published weekly in a women's magazine. At the same time, she published an autobiographical novel, Praise. 100 days after her divorce, Kanae married again, this time to a real estate entrepreneur. But after a few months, they divorced. In 2018, Kanae decided to marry again, and in this case, the chosen one was a 40-year-old man who worked at the publishing house responsible for publishing her book. While awaiting her execution, Kanae continued to lead an active and controversial life, generating both admiration and condemnation. This is where the story ends. Now I ask you to put a like on the video, subscribe to the channel that would not miss new terrible criminal cases, and write your comment under this video. Bye-bye.